From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. James, it's great to be back with you, and I think we have another exciting episode on tap.
It's always great to be here, Steve, with you and talking programming. And I look forward to this one. We got a HEPA member here, so this is going to be great.
Absolutely. So before I introduce him, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is communities and being able to create a following and a place for people to congregate. And I guess today came from your Slack channel, so that's really cool, and or the HEPMA community, and we value that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Aaron Baker. He's the classroom support technician from Stephen F. Austin State University. Welcome, Aaron.
Hey, hi.
Thanks for being with us today.
Yep, glad to be here.
So we normally like to get a little bit of context with our guests. So if you could give us a little bit of your background, your journey in AV. Everybody has one that's kind of unique, and talk with that how program influenced the path that you took.
Well, besides actually having the computer science degree, like I went through school for programming and for other things too, but I actually I feel like it for this particular position, being in higher ed AV, I actually started out being a student worker for our Center for Teaching and Learning. And at the time, the CTL was actually part of the classroom upgrades of trying to just, not just put a control system in it, but, give a fresh paint carpet, all that. So it was my first little dabble into AV a little bit. So we were the one supporting it at first. Then after I graduated and had a brief stint at a community college, not far from here, I came back as the AV tech and fell in love with it pretty quickly. Enjoyed the troubleshooting aspect of it. Then when we got into the programming side of it, I was like, ooh, even better. Uh, with having the math background too, with all the problem solving skills you learned from the math degree, that it really plays into I think it would play into much of an effect of what it's been. But what I've come to accomplish, because I'm only relatively new to the AV space and AV programming in general, that I think the first accomplishment that I'm starting to get out is I took our old user interface code was pretty okay, pretty good. I liked it, but the user interface was starting to fill data and all that. So what we're starting out now is brand new code with the new system and everything, and my own UI. And so it's been, I love that accomplishment coming through, seeing all that played out.
Very cool. That's always the challenging part, and a lot of times we don't necessarily always find somebody who likes the front end and the back end. So is there a preference that you have, or is it just something that you focused on because you thought it needed the most, or it had the opportunity for growth?
Yeah, programming, I actually wasn't planning on it originally. It was kind of one of those, because at the time we were hiring the outside integrators in to code for us, but I think it was literally a button didn't get programmed accidentally. So your UI had two types of power off buttons, and one worked but not the other. So I got my first dive into figuring that out. I'm like, ooh, I actually like this a lot better than having to go out and be front end. I very much enjoyed being on the back end side of it.
Good. So you went to school for programming. So what were you looking to achieve? I know you fell in AV, fell in love with it, normal thing for AV people, but okay, you went to school for programming. What was your aspiration?
Honestly, meteorology. I actually it's one of those of when I got through the programming program that it was, or the CS program here, it kind of was like it was kind of a little bit, it was too little too late pretty much, but it was going to be I enjoyed the programming more as a hobby stuff, and I don't feel myself doing this day to day. So I ended up um I've always been a weather enthusiast and whatnot. So I was actually going to go after I finished the CS degree and get master's. Well, finish CS and math degree and then go and get a master's in meteorology. But the cards didn't line just right, and want to learn that I think this, because the programming AV has a unique challenge to it. I think that's why I fell in love with it more than what I expected to when I first started.
Nice.
Uh,
So, do you feel, I know you still knew the AV side of it, but do you feel that education you got from school and the CS degree allow you to pick up the AV programming quickly?
I think it did. I think I always like to joke, especially with our my other classroom support tech that's on our team. No, he just recently finished the CS program here, so I tell him, especially because we're mostly a Crestron house. So I with that Crestron programming, it reminds me of a lot of the stuff that I learned in our of what we call the what we did what us students deemed as the weed out class in the CS department. And that was the computer architecture class because you're learning about bringing your highs and lows and all this other stuff. And once he started dabbling in it, he's like, "Hey, I see what you mean. It is I very much like that course and all that." But I think that helped out, and then learning to some of the programming stuff that you do learn, I feel like has played into effect with the whole like make sure you leave comments, document the code as much as you can. Especially when you get into with being Crestron, getting into like the simple sharp and Simple Plus and all that, that it's, making sure you know where to find, how to find your missed close parentheses and all that other stuff. But other than that, I feel like, especially now that we're AV is starting to open up more to these actual languages of their own proprietary um, coding ways per se, I think it's going to really come into play once we start implementing that for sure.
That's that's good because I know Steve and I have talked about this, and I've seen a lot of uh chatter online over the years of, you know, the right path. And I don't think there is either right path, like taking a person who went to CS and making them an AV programmer, or taking an AV tech and making them an AV programmer. Like, what was easier? I'm with you, Aaron. I think it's was easy for me with my IT background and knowledge of programming to pick up the AV programming, but each their own.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. And and it's hard for us because we recently started a partnership with the CS department in our IT area that having doing an internship, and it's hard for me. We kind of wish, but me and my other classroom sport tech, no, we wish we could actually sit down and like have like a curriculum per se. Like show them like, hey, this is how the coding works. But it's hard because that internships during the summer and that's our install season, and we usually are doing our installs in house. And in fact, I was working on an install before this we start recording here, and it's hard to sit down and actually do the programming during the summer for us. It's much easier during the long semesters which unfortunately we don't have any the internship at the time. But we've had a couple of student workers come through that have shown interest, and I've like gone through and like, hey, this is how the code works and all this other stuff, especially with the DSP programming. Some of them were really liking that.
How did you pick up your AV side then? Is that something that you learned as a student worker and then you kind of merged the two, or is it an interest of yours at all? Like, because that to me, I think it is that missing piece for somebody who can code, but they have to understand what they're coding and the application and the users and also all the restrictions that are involved in AV programming, which can be frustrating to some.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've had a little bit of enthusiasm with in the AV space a little bit. Like I've especially done stereo systems and all this for around the house and all that. But uh I think just having that knowledge of like, oh hey, and I try to keep up with tech as much as I can. So I think it's kind of easy, like, oh yeah, the HDMI 2.74, whatever, And but yeah, it's uh I think that's pretty much it, that gap. Learning, I think just for me, how I picked it up pretty much easy. It was just that weird, different type of problem solving that you don't usually get with normal programming, I feel like.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've been told that people like it because it's something tangible and you can really see the results, right? Versus writing something that may be really complex or challenging, but it becomes a small part to this big puzzle.
Yeah, that's for sure.
the one of the things that we talk about a lot, and it's something that we could expand upon if you have insight you could share, is how do we get more people into this industry with that type of an interest. And um, programming is one area, being even a tech is another area. It's one thing that James and I are passionate about. We've been involved with different organizations to have ideas and help to create awareness for our industry.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. Like, it's hard. It is hard to get that interest in, especially if they're have that programming background. And I know, no, the other classroom support tech, like, I don't think he was really into it at first, but now that he finally got the first press run training out of the way, we can actually get into a class that he's like, now he's playing this all in his head. It's like, okay, where can I find this used equipment, and go into the house, like plug into my house and all this other stuff. And like, yes, go hit that bug. But
Absolutely.
Yeah.
but just trying to get that. I think it's more, maybe it's something maybe for us to even look into as well, because we've had that interest. It's maybe, do the same partnership like we have with the CS department. Um, but instead of during the summer, maybe offer it for like a long semester. That way we can actually have time to sit down and like, hey, look, here's the programming side of it, on top of the install and the maintenance and all that other stuff. So
Yeah,
That sounds. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, I always think that student workers could be a good feeder for this industry if it's played properly, even though that a lot of them don't get into it because of the fact that they want to be in the industry, but more so because they're looking for a job that may be kind of cool. And if they get the bug, though, we should find ways to be able to bring them in and motivate them to continue to pursue it.
yeah, it's for sure. And I know our last student worker we had, like, he wasn't too much into the programming, but one of the things that we're really big on in our classroom support area is inventory, because we have so much tagged inventory in so many buildings um, that sometimes it could be, once we especially get a big order in, it can be a time before it's finally into the master campus inventory. So we actually have our own inventory system that would be like, hey, what computer is in room in STEM 105? And we have that spreadsheet we can pull up right away. And he actually liked that aspect of it more. And when he graduated, I know one of the jobs he was considering was actually an inventory management position. So, but I do agree that trying to get the student workers, in fact, our other class support tech was even a student worker but he was in our tech shop side, but we snatched him up. But I do agree that student workers is a good feeder into full-time stuff.
It definitely seems to be a common theme in, especially in higher ed, that student workers and like I know I was a student worker when I was in college, and in fact, where I first started and cut my teeth on AV was we were very keen on student workers. In fact, 90% of the IT department were started as student workers. Like the current CIO started as a student worker at the university. So it was definitely a good thing fostering them. And as some people say, you kind of get cheap labor, but I don't look at it that way. I get skilled labor.
And it's a
Yeah,
good tryout too, if you think about it, for both parties.
Yeah,
yeah,
the
it's for
thing is,
sure.
the what I feel is when they graduate, they come out with an idea of how things should be, which is not the case in the real world. So if you can get them when they're a student and they have no clue, you can kind of mold them the way that needs to be done. So that's why I like using student workers.
Yeah, same here. And like, I know like the other classroom tech I keep talking about, like, he was a student worker for us for a little while. Actually started as the intern, then he got hired on as a student worker, and then no, now he's no full time on our side, but no, he was on the tech shop side, but he learned so many valuable skills that we're also part tech shop too, with the way our department runs. That he came in with a lot of knowledge that, like, hey, I don't have to go to the one person. He learned so much, I can actually ask him, and he's usually pretty good at getting it done as well. So I mean, I enjoy having student workers that are like that.
It's probably a good place for us to wrap this one up. But I think we're going to have Aaron on for our next show, so stay tuned to that, and we'll be continuing this conversation and talking some more about programming and really some things that are. I think key for people to know in terms of how they get into the industry and where the opportunities are. So um, thank you, Aaron, for being part of this show today. How could people reach out to you if they wanted to continue the conversation or learn more about you or get some information about even what you're doing at Stephen F. Austin?
Yeah, LinkedIn's a good way for sure. No, I don't really have too much of like not too much active anymore with social media, and then but even if you did, it's still like a bunch of random weather stuff. But LinkedIn's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Excellent. And James, another great show and another great conversation. And thanks for introducing us to another HEPMA member. How can people get in touch with you, learn what you're up to, and continue the conversation?
You can find me on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days at AB_James King. I'm on LinkedIn, Insing with HEPMA. I guess we keep saying HEPMA, we'll get a retweet from them. So let's just keep dropping the name HEPMA. And then, yeah, again, Google me, you'll find me.
We'll have to be search engine optimized for HEPMA. So one thing that we'd like to talk a little bit about, and as we mentioned LinkedIn, is that James and I have started a LinkedIn group called Ask the Programmer. If you'd like to be part of that, just hop on in. We put up polls and comments and talk about the shows and continue these conversations. So that's where we're trying to build a community of programmers and those who are supporting the show. We'd like to see you there, and we'd like to also get to know you a little bit better. So reach out to us and connect. Make sure that you join this group, and it's been building week by week. So that's an excellent thing. Shows that there's a need. For me personally, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media. My company, Control Concepts, is a supporter of the show. We do some of the building blocks that other programmers need to get their projects done. So we write modules, drivers, and plugins for manufacturers' equipment, as well as utilities that are either at a low cost or no cost. So check those out at controlconcepts.net. And I'd like to hear from you, and we'd like to know if you'd like to be on the show, just like Aaron was on. And please reach out to us, let us know what you think, and leave us a rating or review. We definitely want to keep this conversation going and make sure that this podcast is addressing the topics that everyone wants to hear about. And until next time, this has been Ask the Programmer.